Hey YouTube, how are you all this afternoon? Welcome back to the Practical Life. This is Ashley Nicole. I hope you all can hear me. I'm sure. I think you can. Yeah. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Is today Thursday? I think so. This has been a short week, so sometimes I get confused. But yes, it is Thursday. As you all can see, I have my avatar up today because we're talking about something very serious, and I want to make sure that we kind of keep our minds focused. And also, I probably need to move around a little bit, so that is another reason why. But how are you all? How's everything going? How are we doing? With being consistent. I know I told you all before that sometimes if I have my avatar up, it's me kind of keeping a promise to myself and kind of you know staying on top of my own goals as far as being consistent on YouTube. And so that's part of it as well. So sometimes, say for example, and I'm gonna just be real with y'all, sometimes if I don't feel like it, or sometimes if I have a lot to do during the day, because most of the time during the day I am half of the time I'm working, right? And the other half of the time I'm preparing for my kids to get home. I'm the kind of mom that I like to make sure that my kids come home to a and it's just me. I don't even know um where I got this from. I think I came up with it on my own. It just makes me feel better as a mom, to make sure that when my kids come home, I like to make sure the house is like straightened up. I don't like for them to come home in chaos, or things are not straightened up. I like to make sure dinner is cooked and things like that. So um so they look forward to coming home and relaxing and talking about their day and just being happy, healthy, and safe kids. So yeah, so that's what I do the other part of my day. But I want to also make sure that I'm meeting my own goals, right? As a person, right? And so part of that again is being consistent with my own goals. But today I wanted to come to you all to speak about suicide prevention. And September is Suicide Prevention Month, and we are also in the actual week of Suicide Prevention Week. Hold on, y'all, let me get a drink of water. Sorry about that. Thank you. So I wanted to ensure that, as a therapist, I came to talk about this. Now, this channel, again, is all about mental health. This is where you can get your questions answered about mental health for yourself or someone else. If you are struggling with how to manage your mental health in the workplace, this is the channel for you as well. If you need to know how to manage that or need help with strategizing or need coaching regarding that, feel free to contact me. All of my information will be in the description box below. Um, the young lady on the screen that you see, her name is Raven Jackson, I believe. She is the girlfriend of, his name is 600 Breezy. I think that's what his rap name is. To be honest, I have never heard of this rapper, but I think he's out of Chicago. I think he may not be new because sometimes rappers, y'all, they've been out for a long time, and you probably ain't never heard of them, but baby, they've been out in their own community doing what they do. So his girlfriend took her own life, and she actually left a note. And so this was the third person in the last probably week and a half that I had seen that had, died by suicide. And so, because this particular month kind of focuses on that, I thought that I would, come and make a video on talking about the warning signs. Because even though suicide is preventable. But I'll just say this to get this out of the way. When someone has made their mind up to do that, there is nothing that you're going to be able to do. Sometimes we may not even know. Sometimes you may not see the warning signs, right? And I'll get into that a little bit as well. But she was the third person that I saw. Another person that I saw that died by suicide was the CFO of Bed Bath and Beyond. And this man, he was in his 50s. I think he was 52. His name was Gustavo, I believe, and he jumped from his apartment building. Now, when I was reading up on that, I was thinking because he was only the CFO for 2 years of Bed Bath and Beyond. However, his career span, included him being an executive for years. And I always talk to people about this. When you get into leadership and management, especially being a senior leader, there are a lot of responsibilities. Like you have to have in my opinion, you got to have a special type of personality to be in those types of executive roles because the level of responsibility that you have, like, think about it. I mean, you are CFO of a whole company that employs thousands and thousands and thousands of people, right? So in some part you feel responsible for these for people's livelihood, if the company progresses or sinks, and that is a lot to take on, right? And on top of that, after you leave work as an executive, you're going home and you're the executive of your home. You know what I mean? So you are managing that as well, and you've got to find a balance. So if you are the type of person that uh wears your heart on your sleeves, that takes things personal, like leadership and management may not be the right track for you because there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of things that you have to overlook. There are a lot of things that you got to figure out. There are a lot of things that you're not going to agree with. So when I started to kind of look into that story, I'm like, well, dog, he was only there for 2 years. Like, what could have happened, right? Now, before, like a couple of days before that, we had gotten the information that Bed Bath and Beyond, basically, they were going to close. I think it was 150 stores, and this either last year or this year they had made significantly less than they did the year before, right? But in my mind I'm thinking, I ain't seen a Bed Bath and Beyond in ages. Like, they few and far between. It's almost, if looking for a Bed Bath and Beyond is almost looking for like a Kmart, you know. And Kmart is gone, honey. You can't find a Kmart nowhere. So, or trying to find or trying to find a Sears, they go too. So it's like, what I was wondering, how did they even make that much money? Maybe it's in the area that I'm in, and because with stores, it could be some areas in the country where it's you know they're more popular and people spend more at that particular store in certain areas, right? So it may be more of them in a different area. But I'm like, girl, I ain't seen no Bed Bath and Beyond in a while. But anywho, so he had been the CFO for 2 years, but he come to find out he didn't got himself involved in some other stuff with selling shares and fraud and all this stuff, right? So now you've got a lot of guilt, you've got a lot of shame, you've got a lot of anxiety about what's getting ready to go down. Are you getting ready to go to jail? Are you being investigated, right? And then you have a family to still take care of. What's going to happen to them? And it becomes overwhelming. So nobody will really ever know the reason why, because this man didn't leave a note or anything like that. But I feel like even if he had left a note, you still ain't gonna know why. You know what I mean? But you can only suspect that it became so overwhelming for him, that he couldn't deal with it. right? Then the other person was the judge's mom. And her daughter actually, I think Ashley Judd actually found her in the house. And Ashley talked about uh kind of, how she kind of felt like the police was looking at her as a suspect because they didn't really know what happened and all this stuff. And she even went on to say that she's trying to fight her and her the mom's husband. They're trying to fight to get some kind of law passed for privacy rights because they didn't really want anyone to know that the mom had died by suicide. They thought, they felt like this is a family concern, and we want that information to be private. So they trying to kind of get a law passed about that, But to me, I understand that part. But also we have to think about going back to excuse me, the stigma of talking about mental health and the stigma of having been diagnosed with with a mental health disorder, because I think the mom was diagnosed or she was battling with bipolar disorder, um and so allegedly. And so that having privacy protections and things like that, that goes back to mental health being a taboo topic where we don't want to talk about it. We kind of want to sweep it under the rug. And sometimes when you are these celebrities and things like that, when they talk about it on their level, it kind of, in some ways, for some people, normalizes how they're feeling. So then they're okay with speaking about it. So privacy, I understand, is maybe needed, for the family. But when you look at the bigger picture, right? Maybe it's something that needs to be talked about. How is it, and ask these questions, which of course, sometimes we may never know, but it just kind of gets you to thinking, how is it all this time she was able to hold on, she was able to manage, she was able to get by, and then all of a sudden, what triggered her to just do it? So we'll get into it. So a lot of this I'm talking about in this video, is fair use. It's based on my opinion. Some things, may be alleged, but based on my opinion, my expertise, my experience in the mental health field, I'm just giving my opinion on these, stories. And so I heard about the Bed Bath and Beyond CFO, and then this young lady here, Raven Jackson. Now, when Raven, she left her note to her boyfriend, right? 600 Breezy. She was saying, and this is just me kind of paraphrasing, that she had been battling these thoughts for a long time and that he had nothing to do with it. She was waiting for the right time to do this. And his response, this was all on social media, but his response was that, of course he is heartbroken, kind of letting her know that she left him, and that he was trying to help her and things like that. And a lot of the pictures that you see of them, what do you see? You see her smiling, you see her laughing, you see them doing activities together. And that's why I say, sometimes we can, the warning signs are clear, right? But sometimes they are not. This young lady had looks like a thriving business. She had a fitness business where she was helping other women. She even had a podcast talking about mental health, right? And I will say those are some of the people that you got to check in on. The people that seem like they have it all together, the people that don't miss a step, the people that don't miss a beat. Those are the people that you got to check in on, because they may be, and not everybody, but they may be suffering in silence, right? And someone just kind of checking on them, saying, how are things going? Or, you know, you never know what they could do. I think about, when I talk about this, I think about Kevin Gates and him talking about his challenges with mental health and how he was getting ready to unalive himself, honey, and he was at the gym, and this random person came up to him and said, your music really helped me and changed my life. And I guess he could sense that Kevin was about to do something, and he was like, don't do that. And that is the only thing that changed his mind that day. However, he said he struggles every day. He struggles every day. No matter how much money he has, no matter how many shows he does, no matter how much music he makes that he likes to do, right? You just never know. But we definitely need to talk about it and make sure that it's not a taboo topic, just so the clear warning signs that we do see, we know what to do and kind of how to help a person through that if there are clear signs. Um, so first I wanted to talk about some of the risk factors, because there are warning signs that you might see, but there are also risk factors that someone may have that makes them more likely to think about, have thoughts of, or follow through with unaliving themselves, right? So if someone has a mood disorder, we're talking about bipolar, we're talking about severe depression, sometimes even mild depression. And two, someone may have, let me just say this, it's okay if you think someone is having those thoughts. It's okay to ask them outright. Like, don't beat around the bush, right? Don't beat around the bush and say, how are you feeling? Like, if you really, especially if you have like evidence that they are going to do something like this or something like that, you want to ask them outright. Are you having thoughts about hurting yourself? If they say yes, okay, do you have a plan? You want to make sure to see if they have any weapons around, anything that's around to hurt themselves, right? And then you try to get them help, but you want to outright ask somebody. As a therapist, if there's any indication that a client may, do something like that, I outright ask them. There is no beating around the bush, right? So if someone has a severe mood disorder, that's a risk factor. Anxiety disorders, you think about that CFO. Like, imagine having all that weight on your shoulders of being an executive, any executive really of a big company, that they may not have, I'm talking about in general, they might not have thoughts about hurting themselves, but they have a lot on their shoulders, you know. They gotta answer to employees, you know what I mean? They have the responsibility of making sure employees are able to keep their jobs. And baby, when people lose their job, honey, they calling everybody what is going on. If y'all ever notice, like if you ever work for a company where they send out memos or they send out these monthly newsletters by email or whatever, saying, you know, oh, or these department meetings, we're not doing so well, we may have to let 20 people go or whatever it is. Can you imagine employees trying to figure out what is going on when just last quarter y'all said we were doing good, So imagine the anxiety that this man felt. And this man was not even the he was the financial officer. So not only the employees, but the whole company, making sure that they stay, in good standing and things like that. Now, it seemed like based on additional information, he got himself involved in some additional stuff that he wasn't supposed to be doing. So people, may have other questions as well. Like, you knew you weren't supposed to be doing certain things allegedly, you know what I mean? But still, you you can imagine the amount of anxiety that he did have. So people with anxiety disorders are more likely, or are, a risk of doing that as well. Anyone with a substance use disorder or struggles with, or an increased use of substances like alcohol, drugs, polysubstance, things like that, they are at an, increased risk for unaliving themselves as well. Anyone who has like impulsive tendencies, they just don't think before they do stuff, just impulsive. um Sometimes, when you talk about mental health, you think about people with bipolar disorder and who have the classic symptom of being manic. Those are impulsive tendencies, just doing things without thinking, to just kind of plainly put it. um People who have a history of trauma or some type of abuse, right? Those people are more likely to unalive themselves or have thoughts about it, right? Because especially if they have not learned the effective coping skills to manage how they're feeling. Because remember, when you talk about trauma, and I think I touched on this in my in the Jessica Reed video. When you talk about trauma, right? There are some days where you may be chugging along and you fine, but at any moment you could be triggered to think about what happened to you, right? um and some people, I sometimes I think some people have just different personalities, right? And there are some personalities that always, or the majority of the time, geared towards the negative, right? And, think about those shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or the why. Why didn't this happen? Or why couldn't I have had this? Or, um, some people have the personality that is just kind of geared towards that. And in my opinion, a lot of that is, how you basically what your parents gave you, right? Because if you think about it, when you grow up, their parents or whoever raised you, those are your first teachers, right? And they are the ones who teach you how to problem solve. They are the ones who teach you how to cope when something has not going your way, or they're the ones who also teach you how to respond or how to react when things don't go your way. And some people have never learned that. And so, the have never learned an effective way of doing that, right? So if if you have been, and if you do something the same way for a long time, like I said before, change is hard. Now, when you know better, you do better. So now the correct way to respond or how to deal with something. I say, okay, this is just a challenge. How do I get past it? Let me figure it out, right? But when you've been doing something for so long, and that's like the way that you've been doing it, and you want to change, you got good intentions of thinking of it or having a different perspective, but it's hard to do that when you've been doing it one way for so long, right? So if you have that type of personality tendency to think about the negative all the time, and you cannot get yourself out of that place, then are going to be more of a risk of doing that, because you don't know how to cope, right? So yeah, so history of trauma. Someone, this is a big one. People who have had previous attempts, right? They, attempted, and they weren't successful. They're more likely to try again. um let's see, if there is a family history, right? And this is important too in certain communities, because a lot of cultures, and it may not even be the culture as a whole, but there are family cultures, right? So what do I mean by that? So you got your immediate family, but say for instance, okay, you get married, right? Now you have your family, right? So your family culture, right? Sometimes things are swept under the rug for immediate families, or even, down the line. Sometimes things are swept under the rug so much where, in previous times, certain things like this we didn't talk about. Your family didn't talk about, or they never knew, right? So you may never know that your great grandfather tried to unalive himself, or or your great great uncle or whatever, right? And people don't share those things. It's the same thing as certain family members that may have had certain chronic illnesses and things like that, that may be hereditary, and they that may help us now when we go to the doctor. They say, okay, do you have a family history of this? You don't even know because nobody ever talk about it. You know what I mean? And so that's why it's important to know, because now you know what, now I know I'm prone to certain things. You know what I'm saying? And you can uh put things in place to prevent yourself from getting to a certain place where you may be there as well, right? Um, let's see what else. Job or financial loss. So, like I said before, when people lose their jobs, honey, this is the people who have a livelihood, and you have families and stuff to take care of. It is, a lot on people's shoulders. And sometimes, especially too, when things like that happen, people want to know why. People want to know, well, what happened? What did I do? And sometimes there is no reason why. Like I said, there's some states that don't even have to tell, employees don't even have to tell you why they letting you go. Can you imagine? So then that's when you get people, with workplace violence and stuff like that, because it's like, okay, just yesterday everything was fine. Now this morning y'all got somebody walking me out the door. Like, how do you deal with things like that? And there may be some companies who do this, but that's why it's always important to have a licensed professional on call, on staff, even if the person doesn't want it, if they say no, you know what, I'm good, I don't even want to talk to anybody, okay, that's fine, but we offered it to them, right? Because you got to, even though you're a manager or a director or whatever, and you let somebody go, you got to have some part of empathy for people, because guess what, it can happen to you too. It could happen to you too. You letting one of your employees go today, but tomorrow your manager might come and say, okay, we got to let two directors go. You see what I'm saying? So you've got to always, and you never know who you're going to need, honey. You never know who God is going to bless, right? That person that you let go, they might get to another company making 300,000 a year, and now they hiring people, and then they let you go the next day, and now you're looking for a job, and you run into that person that you let go. You see what I'm saying? So you got to make sure that treat people how you want to be treated. When you always say, okay, let me offer EAP assistance, and things like that. It's always good to have some type of licensed professional on the ready to talk to people about this stuff. Job loss, financial loss, and most importantly, resources for them, just in case they need help with their light bill, just in case they need to know where a pantry is. There are so many resources out here that people don't even know about. So yeah, so if someone has lost their job or there's a financial loss, there's more risk of them unaliving themselves. So now that we talked about, and these are just really some of the risk factors, there's a lot more. It just depending on the situation, right? You can probably imagine what those are, but these are some of the most common. So now we get into warning signs. What are some of the warning signs? And these are clear warning signs. Like I said before, you may not even know. Like I heard this Raven's boyfriend, 600 probably knew that she was struggling, but he may not have known that she was struggling so severely that she was thinking about doing something like this, right? He probably knew that some days she was a little bit sad, or she got down on herself, or it seemed like, her confidence was low or whatever. But then when you look at the overall picture, he probably never knew that she was going to do something like this, because remember, she had a thriving business. When you look at pictures of them, she was smiling on the pictures. Looks like she had a pretty good, social media following, things like that. But that goes to show you what? That goes to show you that none of that stuff matters. Health, like they say, health is wealth, and that includes your mental health, because this girl had it all, right? She had a rapper boyfriend. She had people following her. Um, she had a good business, looked like she loved to do, right? She had a podcast talking about mental health. She I think her other business included like fitness and getting in the gym and stuff like that. And beautiful girl, right? But that tells you that none of that stuff matters, right? And so the mental health is so important, right? So what are some of the clear warning signs? If someone has, the first one is someone has extreme mood swings. And this could probably go into like impulsive behavior too, but extreme mood swings where one moment they way up there, they're so happy, they're so excited, they're elated about something. They may even have grandiose ideas about doing something, right? And they can also go into that same kind of mood disorders, bipolar, things like that, right? And then the next minute, baby, when I say they down, so sad they cannot get out the bed, negative thinking, they're not laughing, smiling, things like that. But it's an extreme change from one end to the other. The next one is if they are talking about being a burden, right? And that again goes into the kind of like the personality. If they are talking about how someone has to always do things for them, again they feel like they are a burden to this world. If someone kind of starts talking in that way. The third one could be withdrawing, isolating themselves from friends, family, even social media, right? If you have a person who has been, posting continuously all the time, several times a day, things like that, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from them. They used to post 4 or 5 times a week. Now they only post it once a week, or they don't post at all. You haven't seen them in months. And if you notice, for some of the people that you follow on social media, and they have done that and they're gone for a couple of months at a time, or maybe a month, when they come back, what's the first thing they say? Let me know in the chat. The first thing they say is, or what's in their title? My mental health challenges, my mental health struggles. Or in the video, they say, hey, y'all, I'm back. I was dealing, with my mental health. I had to get my mind right. I had to get my mind together. That is the first thing that they say, right? So that tells you again that, you know, it's important to take that mental health time, even for people on social media, right? Tells you that they got to take mental health days too. Shoot, sometimes might be a mental health month. It is what it is, and they come back and they're being transparent and candid about the situation. Yeah, I had to get my mental health right. Like I was doing too much. Social media started getting to me. I had to take a break, right? But if somebody starts withdrawing, again, isolating themselves, that could be a warning sign. And when you see these warning signs, you just want to check in, because that's really all you can do. Because remember, you don't know when, where, and why, if they really got their mindset on doing something like that. Number 4, giving things away. Y'all, this is a big one, because when people start giving away their prized possessions, things that they hold dear to their heart, they're just giving it away willy-nilly. Like, oh yeah, you can have my Porsche or whatever it might be. I'm just that's an extravagant example, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like they start giving stuff away that you never thought that they would give away. They jewelry that maybe their grandmother gave to them, things like that. Um, they start giving it away without really caring. Like they stop caring about their things. That's a big one too. And you might see some of these signs alone or coupled together. So, for example, if somebody starts giving things away and then all of a sudden you see that they have, extreme changes in their mood, or they also start withdrawing, things like that, then that may be a clear sign that we need to start checking on sis or bro, because something ain't right. You know what I mean? Uh, and when you check in, you do an honest check in. Hey, I noticed this. I noticed this. And I'm gonna tell y'all again, you may not know. There was I'm sure everyone kind of knows about the story, about these SHOOTINGs in the school. And the biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest one, but one of them, the it's not even a trial. It's basically, I forget what they call it. To figure out, they having hearings to figure out how much time he gonna get, baby, because we already know that you did it. And I think he confessed for the school in Parkland, Florida. And a lot of those kids, y'all, it is so sad. A lot of those kids, probably like a year. I know one in particular, um, probably like a year after. One of her friends was life was taken on that day that this kid did that, and about a year later, she took her own life because she just couldn't handle it. And so, people behind the computer say a lot of mean things. Um, and somebody made a video about it. I think it was like a news station or something. And in the comments, people were saying, oh, well, the mom and the parents should have known, and, they should have been checking on her. But again, you don't know. The mom had said she didn't know she was struggling. Of course, she knew that she was sad that her friend, had passed, and sad for her school and things like that, but she had been going to counseling. She had, you know what I mean? And they thought that she was managing the best way that she could based on the circumstance. And she took her own life. And you just can't imagine, especially as a kid, a teenager, right? And that particular school is in a very I wouldn't say I wouldn't go as far to say like affluent area, but it's a very like pristine area. It is a place where you would say, uh, this is a great area to raise a family. Um, there's a very good school, great school and things like that. And, you know, you just never imagine something like that happening at that school, let alone in that area. You know what I mean? And but her parents said that they did not know, right? And a lot of things happen in this world, or something you just can't fathom. But it's kind of like, it's almost like there are so many things, y'all, that are happening that are so sad, and you can imagine, kids going through and adults going through and things like that. But so it's kind of like, even though we know you're sad, it's like we got to find some kind of way to move on from it as well. And those might not be the best words, but try to figure out how to go on with your life. You know what I mean? And for some people, they can't fathom doing that. Because of what they have experienced. So you can, again, you can give all the help, you can give all the resources, but sometimes you just don't know. And but then that leads to, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so giving things away. Number five, someone feeling hopeless about the future or their current circumstances. Just kind of feeling hopeless. There's nothing that we can do. There's no way that I can, help myself or get through whatever circumstance I'm going through, right? And you can probably we can probably suspect that some of the example that I just gave was probably some of the thoughts that teenager had, that it's hopeless, like we're never going to get past this. It's always on the TV, right? When she goes to somewhere, someone may ask her about it. And then people have good intentions. And so, but you just don't know how it's going to affect that person. You know what I mean? So that person she may have had those feelings of just feeling hopeless. And who knows, we don't even know if she was at risk of doing something like that. Maybe she had thoughts about that before this all happened. Maybe she was struggling, with depression or anxiety before this all happened, and this just kind of put everything together and gave her a reason, honey, right? um so yeah. So now, I have it in the description box, but if you or someone is struggling, and they need immediate assistance or just someone to talk to, right? You can simply call or text 988, and that is the new number for the crisis hotline and the suicide hotline, is to call or text 988. A person can also obtain online therapy. Make sure that you start seeing a therapist and talking about and being honest about how you're feeling, because again, you can learn those effective coping skills. Now, I'll tell you all something about therapists. Legally, whatever state you are licensed in, that's who you're able to enter into a counseling relationship with, right? So, for example, if I am licensed in the state of Missouri as a therapist, I'm only licensed to see clients in Missouri. If I'm licensed in Missouri in New York, I'm able to see uh, clients that reside in Missouri and New York, right? So, I have a resource for you all for online therapy, and I'll put it in the description box, because if you reach out to me and I offer coaching and I offer therapy as well, but only to certain um, clients that live in a certain area. So in order for you to obtain a therapist in your own area, right, I have a resource for you all to be able to, obtain a therapy from someone in your area. And a lot of people, especially with anxiety, they are more comfortable with having online therapy, because remember, you're at home, you're sitting on your couch, you could be sitting in the bed and you could be receiving therapy, right? Um, and this particular site too, you can change therapists anytime. You're not obligated to see the same person. You can do text, you can do chat, right? So those are all the benefits of just virtual therapy in general. But I want to make sure that I provide you all a resource, just in case, some people have reached out to me and I'm not able to provide therapeutic services because you don't live in my area. This is a way for you to be able to get that. So I'll make sure that I have that resource in the description box. It is onlinetherapy.com. So again, if you know someone who is struggling, just need someone to talk to, you can call or text 988. I really wanted to make sure that I talked about this during this time, because it's been too many people in the last week and a half. And I even think about, there was a young lady, what was her, I forget her name, but she was like she was Miss something. Was she Miss USA? I think so. I think she was Miss USA at one point. and she was a news anchor or reporter or something. She lived in New York too. And but now see her story is a little different because they think something really happened to her. I'm gonna have to look that up and see because the last time I looked at it, they said that she had unalived herself, but then they was like, nah, something else was going on with that. Um, but it appeared that she had but there are so many stories, and so many people doing this, and you don't know why. A note is not left, and like I said, if a note is left, you really will never know. And so that's what I wanted to say. That leaves family, friends, co-workers, even associates, right, of feeling guilt, feeling shame, um, you know, with leaving them with questions, right? Um, because they don't know why. And can you imagine every day they are at some point in the day they thinking about, well, why? Why would they do this? And just different questions, why would they do it? Were things that bad? um what didn't they do? Just like Raven's boyfriend, he's like, I was trying my best to help you. I was going to come back. I told you I was coming back. So how much guilt does this man feel, right? Even though he probably already knows that there is nothing that he could have done, but that doesn't negate his feelings of the feelings of guilt that he may have. I even saw that her friends to get him to, because then too, once a person does this, that puts the family and friends at risk of doing it as well, because they have those lingering questions, and then they start to feel those same feelings, not being able to cope, trying to feeling hopeless, with these lingering questions, right? And I even saw some of her friends sending him the messages that she would send them about him. When she got into a relationship with him, she felt like it was a great relationship, that he was there for her, that he was actually a great boyfriend. Like, she finally found someone, right? And she was sending her friends text saying this stuff like, friend, like, he is a really good boyfriend. Like, I really like him. He's really into me, like, this is a great relationship. And so they were sending him the text she sent them saying, please know that it's nothing that you did. Like, she really loved you, And so then you can imagine that they have these feelings, okay, we got to make sure he knows that it's nothing that he could have done. And in her note, she said, I was just waiting for the right time. Like, I've been trying to do this. I was just waiting for the right time. And so think about, when you talk about empathizing with someone, think about how much how hopeless you gotta feel, how hopeless you gotta feel to get to that point, right? Like, before, because like, okay, this may not be the right thing to do, but imagine feeling like, I've tried everything and it ain't getting better, right? Like, what if a person went to therapy? What if they were on like medication? Because sometimes too, people don't want to talk about medication, taking medication, but sometimes somebody might need medication to get them through, y'all. That don't mean you got to take the medication for the rest of your life. You might only have to take it for 6 months. Right. But to me, in my opinion, ultimately, when you take medication, you got to couple it with therapy, because if you don't want to be on that medication, for a long period of time, then you got to learn the effective coping skills. And you got to be realistic with the situation. Like, I I'm doing good today, but okay, it might be a day that I'm not going to be doing good. And okay, I have to put parameters in place to ensure that I don't continue to have those days, or to ensure that I'm not staying in that negative place, or I'm not staying in a place of hopelessness. Because everybody feel that way sometimes. Sometimes things just bad for real, for real. Like it's like you know some people that they ain't got, and I don't really, I don't really like per se believe in luck and all this stuff sometimes, but some people ain't luck ain't nothing. They luck ain't worth too. It's like every time they is something that ain't right. Every time you talk to them, something ain't right. It's like, dog, didn't y'all just go through this last week? Yesterday, didn't you just tell me this? Now again today, something else gone wrong. Like, imagine feeling like that, right? But it got to be something. It has to be something that kind of keeps you going forward. But again, imagine somebody at that place like Raven, where it's it's hard to fathom, because it's like, okay, in her mind, and this is just me thinking out loud, y'all. In her mind, she's thinking about every day the right time to do this. And in the midst of that, she's laughing, she's smiling, she's having a good time with her boyfriend. She's sending messages to her friends saying, y'all, this relationship bomb. Like, this is a good relationship. Like, even though she's having these happy moments, she's still thinking about when is the right time. That like that, think about that. Even though these happy moments are going on, she's still trying to figure out the right time. So again, he could have did all he could. He could have bought all the Louis purses. He could have went when he said he was gonna go. And she would have been fine. But guess what? When the right time came, she was gonna do what she had decided to do. And when people have their own lives, even though you might be in a relationship, even though you might be married, even though you might be a mom, even though you might be a dad, even though you might be a grandparent, even though you might be an uncle, sister, brother, friend, cousin, whatever it is, you have your own life and you make decisions for your own life. So that's what she did. She made a decision for herself, and it was nothing that nobody else could do. Right? So I am going to leave you all with that. I hope this live was helpful. You know, going back to me, getting on YouTube and making these videos, something was on my heart to start making, videos and bringing awareness about mental health. And so I hope this video helps somebody. Make sure you share this video for someone who may need it. It could be one person, and I would be okay with that. But again, I hope it was helpful. I hope you got some valuable information from this. Let me know what you all want to see. You can leave it in the chat. You can leave it on a replay. You can send me a message. I'm so glad for those who have, been able to join the live and watch. Thank you all for the new subscribers. I greatly appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting on? This channel is all about empowerment, inspiring people, and just, breaking down that stigma and taboo of talking about mental health. And so if you feel so inclined, please feel free to subscribe and join us on our journey to 1,000 subscribers. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.